Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, and welcome to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce. And the call-in number is 646-200-4169. Or we're out in the chat room as well. If you have questions, either call in or type it into the chat room, and we'll be glad to answer it. Michael.
Welcome, and we'd be delighted to hear from you. If you have a question, if you've downloaded and are looking at the worksheet process and have any questions on how to use that process, we'd be delighted to hear from you. And we encourage everybody to have that tool in hand and really, truly make use of it, because it is the key to collapsing what we've identified over the weeks we've been doing the show as the dissociated mind. And it's interesting how we can block things when we live out of the dynamics of that dissociated mind, and the dynamics of our own process become invisible to us. We can, of course, assess and see everybody else's problem, but our own becomes invisible. And so we're looking to make the invisible visible, because, of course, it can't be hidden. It all plays out in the end. And so, David, you're on the line?
I am on the line, Michael. How are you doing this beautiful morning?
Oh, I'm good, but David, maybe you need to hang up and call back again. Your voice is very garbled. I don't know if you're that way on the radio too, but coming over the phone that we're listening to, very difficult to understand you. So do we have any thoughts or questions in the chat room yet, Jeannie? No? Okay. Well, then let's start to take a look at some more of the dynamics of the process of forgiveness. If you are new to the show and you're not familiar with exactly what we're talking about, we're using the Reality Management Worksheet from our website, and the website is www.whyagain.com. And on the right-hand side, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. We encourage you to download those worksheets and begin to work with them. The first two links on that page when you hit Download Worksheets are a description of how to use the process, and, of course, the worksheet itself is the second link. So I encourage you to please download it and begin to put the pen to the paper. That's what makes the difference. So you're back with us, David. Let's see if your voice sounds any better.
Oh, well, how does it sound now?
Much better, much better. You were sort of sounded like you were speaking from the bottom of a gravel pit the first time around.
Darth Vader.
Yeah, all of a sudden something happened when I was waiting to get on for us to go live, and I said, wow, that was interesting. So, well, I'm on, and it is a beautiful day here in Heartland, and only 108 days away. Or no, wait a minute, take that back. It's 98 days away from the intensives here, so I'm getting ready for that. And things are going well. What's going on in your world there? Here you're at the medical center again?
98 days. Yeah, we're at the medical center in Pahrump. We're going to do the radio show here, and tonight we've got a free open workshop on why is this happening to me again, if anybody would care to join us. We'll be at Health Partners in Pahrump, Nevada. You can jump on our website, again, www.whyagain.com, and download the flyer. You click on schedules. We've got several things happening in the area. Tonight we're doing Why Is This Happening to Me Again at the Medical Center, and then sponsored by the Medical Center, next Thursday we'll be doing the same workshop at a senior center here in Pahrump. And then starting the following Sunday, we'll be at Unity of the Valley in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is right down near the airport, just adjacent to Henderson. I guess it's just about on the Henderson, Las Vegas line. So we'll be doing a week of workshops there. This weekend we've got a 2-day mini-intensive that we're doing, and then the weekend of the 16th and 17th we'll be doing another on codependence. This weekend is on stress, and then we'll be doing codependence to interdependence. So anybody that's in the Nevada area, feel free to come join us. We'd be delighted to see you.
Good.
And
well, it sounds like things are moving along. Are there any questions from the chat room, or is anyone online that they like to talk about anything particular today?
at this point, no questions in the chat room and no questions online. So we're just going to move forward with looking at some of the dynamics of the non-being mind.
And are you there? I can't hear you, Michael, if you can hear me. And maybe it's my phone again. Sounds like that we may have lost Michael there. I'm not sure if anyone can even hear me. So if someone can hear me, well then, Jeannie, if you can hear me, well then just chat in and let me know. Wow, I wonder if we're on the air, if other folks are listening in. There's one thing that I've heard about radio that's never supposed to be in what they refer to as dead air. Like an oxymoron with that. So I'm going to call back in, see if something's going on.
Hello. Well, this is Dr. Tim Hayes, and Jeannie says that I'm on, and I was calling in, I hope Michael can hear me, because I wanted to ask him to talk today about the idea that if I'm going to have a different experience of life, I need to choose a different purpose for living. And I know that particular quote comes from Guy Finley's work, but it really weaves in nicely with what Michael and Jeannie talk about in the Healing Through Relationships video, where they talk about if I'm going to have a different result in my relationships, I need to have a different purpose for being in a relationship. And they talk about how the old purpose for being in a relationship is who's right, who's wrong, and how much stuff can I accumulate. And they offer
Tim, I know who's right, I'm right, and I know who's wrong, you're wrong. So it's settled. Why argue?
Oh, well, if you could get past that, then you might choose a new purpose for being in a relationship. And I recall you saying in your video that purpose for being in a relationship would be to heal.
Oh, well, that's a radical thought. Gee, tell us more about that, Tim.
Well, I would tell you what I know, but I've already told you more than I know. I just really like the way your work dovetails with so many others, including Guy Finley. And he says if you want to have a different experience of life, you have to choose a different purpose for living. And one of the most powerful tools that I've seen from your work is purpose, personal power, and commitment. And you also speak of it directly in the Healing Through Relationships video where you say, in the old one anyway, where you say, we want to choose a new purpose for being in a relationship, and that is my only purpose for being in a relationship with you is that I want to heal everything that's unlike love in me.
There you go, and in you, and to play and be alive and bring more of human life into our own physiology, into our relationships, and into our world. And it's time for that to start to show up in more and more places in the world. And fortunately, and with great enthusiasm, it is happening in more and more circles. I know that today, at noon Eastern time, so we're a little past it now, but it wouldn't hurt to take a minute to just tap into what's been happening in Japan, especially to the water. And Masaru Emoto put forward a request for people to join in prayer to heal the waters and to apologize to the waters that are being damaged by the nuclear accident that's happened out there as a result of this tsunami, and to bring healing to the water. And so perhaps we could together just take a moment and bring our humanness, bring the active presence of love to that situation, the people who are suffering there, the water that's suffering. And perhaps we can together shift the direction that things are going, which is into more and more trauma. And as we bring healing to that, as we bring the presence of love to that whole circumstance, the people who are still in trauma and turmoil, the lives that have been lost, the lives that hang in the balance, that we certainly are here to hold the space of love for each and every one of you who's involved in that. And to the water, to the people, we offer our support, our caring, and our love. And that support and that caring and love goes to the waters within our own field, within our own bodies, within our own world. Some of the things being done to the water that comes out of the taps in this country is nothing short of amazing. The poisons, the toxins, the chemicals that are used are just unbelievable. So maybe we'll just extend that prayer and that support to the waters here, and that we are healing the waters within our own bodies and healing the waters within our own land.
You know, Michael, as you were saying that, I had the thought about offering people to take a look at this movie that's out that's called Tapped, T-A-P-P-E-D, about the water, and it'll gives nice insights to what really is going on with our water today. Very, very important to pay attention to that. So it's called Tapped, T-A-P-P-E-D, and you can just Google it up.
So it's something people can watch online?
Well, I went through Netflix in order to watch it, and so I'm not sure whether it's a free thing to watch. Even if if it costs a few bucks in order to get the video itself and to watch it, what it will save people in stress and where it is that they're at with water, because it is just a vital thing that's going on. It really talks about how water is actually the biggest commodity today, that if people think that gasoline is expensive, take a look at water and what's going on with water and how much money is being made from people that they're making from the water that's out there, and what the control is that's going on with it. And with these other things that are going on, then we have to pay attention to it. Kind of wakes people up to the realization that we can't just keep mucking up our water, that we can't, that we need to be conscious of the simple things, that it seems so simple. Oh, there's always plenty of water, and there's always this, and this documentary will give a real insight to what is really going on out there. Again, it's kind of like what we talk about each day. It's a level of consciousness. When Tim was talking about making a commitment, or talking about relationships and purpose, and to me, once that I establish a new purpose, or at least get clear about my purpose, then I start moving in that direction, and the universe opens up to all these new ideas and thoughts about how to do that and what to look at. So it's no coincidence that all these things are being exposed and being shown to us. We have an opportunity in this day and age with the technology to be in touch with everything that's going on, and we have that responsibility. At least that's my take of it. I have the responsibility to take a look and see what's going on with it, and to be proactive with it. To take some action towards making some things happen. Without that, nothing's going to change. We can talk about it all we want. We can talk about it all we want. We can talk about forgiveness all we want. And as you said at the beginning of the program, until you're willing to put the pen to the paper, nothing's going to change. And people, the mind will argue with that. Oh, well, I've got to figure it out, and I can do that. That's the dissociated mind. Oh, thanks for telling me. Thanks for the reminder. And unless that there's some action taken towards it, nothing changes. Nothing.
You got to do best definition of insanity I've heard is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. One of the things that there are investment houses that are recommending water as an investment, that it's the new gold. And I know we've got some friends who have cherries out in Washington State, and for years they've drawn water, if I remember correctly, I believe it's off the Colorado River. So this water travels hundreds of miles through open trenches to water their fields. And because fresh water is coming to a crisis point, they've actually started a project where they're creating a closed pipeline, spending millions of dollars, because the amount of evaporation, there was a time when it didn't matter, there was plenty of water, but the amount of evaporation in those open trenches was using so much of that water that the farmers were being threatened with not having enough water to grow the fruit that they grow in that part of Washington State. And also the physician that we're staying with here, there was a community that they were getting ready to build not far from Pahrump, about a half an hour from Pahrump, and they were going to be doing a total design community of about 80,000 people. And they went in and started to do this project, and they went down, I believe he said, 2,000 feet, and the whole project crashed because they just couldn't get water. There wasn't enough water to be had to run this community. And we live in a country where for a few ounces of urine, people flush away 1.5 gallons to 5 gallons of water, which I've always, for decades, have felt was insane. It's just crazy the way we value things. And there's a day of reckoning coming with water, and it's time for us to wake up and become aware of that, and to be blessing that which we receive from the water of life, because, of course, without it, life doesn't carry forward.
There's another wonderful movie that is available on YouTube. It's titled Water – The Great Mystery. And I don't know if either one of you have seen it. I think I got turned on to it by Terry Bowling. But it takes Masaru Emoto's work, and Masaru Emoto's work is about 10% of this movie. It expands it beautifully and talks about other research. And what it left me with when I was done watching it was much more of a sense of why I should bless my food and my water before I eat it, and as I store it, and how that can have measurable impact on the structure of water. It doesn't change the chemistry of the water, but it changes the structure of the water, and it changes the qualities that the water holds and imparts. It's a fabulous, fabulous movie. It's about an hour and 15 minutes. Water, The Great Mystery, available on YouTube.
Fabulous. So we've got two of them, Tapped and Water, The Great Mystery, both about that precious, precious resource that keeps us all alive, water. And I was surprised when I was looking at some of the statistics how little of the water on the face of the earth is fresh water and therefore usable without great expense. And we certainly need to be thinking about blessing and using it wisely. And, of course, that ties right back into the work of why is this happening to me again, because we want to be wise about everything that we do, every resource that we have, every interaction that we have, to do it from a space of love and of wisdom. And we come from a culture that has taught us to dissociate from so much of ourselves. If you go back into the ancient Aramaic, you look in the book of Romans, and they said, nothing will remain hidden. Everything will be made known in the light of day. And people think that by not dealing with what's going on inside of them, with not dealing with their hostilities and their fears, that they can just hold their breath and keep it hidden away. But that's the key to making sure that it all comes out in the wash, that it comes into expression. And so rather than pushing that expression out through unconscious means and creating, as creative beings, we create according to the energies we engage in. And instead of creating out of those unconscious states, rather to wake up and create out of an aware, awake state, out of a state of love and of being, gives us the opportunity to do something quite different. And if you go back and you listen to the verbiage in Yeshua's words about the first law, he says that it's about love, and it names three primary objects of attention: the creator, neighbor, and self. And neighbor in Aramaic meaning anybody that you think about. And I'm not exactly sure, but I suspect that that word neighbor would include water, that when we're thinking about it, it becomes our neighbor. And that if we don't have the experience of that first law, if we don't have the experience of the active presence of love in our minds, we can fall off the trail pretty easily and come up with all kinds of rationalizations as to why we should behave the way, the previous generations have behaved. And we're asking folks to wake up to the way the previous generations have behaved and to realize that we're doing the same things. We worked with a gentleman last night, actually it was a couple, and very intellectual man, and we had a conversation about some of the dynamics that were going on with his adult son and how his son was extremely angry and frustrated with him. And he described what he was doing, and it was, well, all I do is, and he kind of crossed his arms and he kind of wrinkled his brow a little bit, and he said, all I do is just, I sit and try to figure this out and think about this. And so I asked him the question, how did it feel when your father did that to you? Or did your father do that to you? And I was like, well, no, I don't know. I don't think so. And his wife turned to him and said, he still does it today. That's exactly what enrages you. And it was like a surprise and a shock to him. Here he was doing exactly with his son what his father did with him. And that's what we tend to do. And the reason for that is because we've denied and dissociated from those behaviors that we don't like. However, when we dissociate from them, they become the behaviors that run us. And with the forgiveness tool from the Aramaic, you uncover those parts of your mind, and with the uncovering those parts of your mind, you have the opportunity to change your mind, which otherwise isn't very changeable, because once we're in that dissociated state, the dissociated mind runs the game. And so it's so important to be able to open that hidden part of the mind and to see what's going on inside of us that drives behavior. This dynamic was so well understood in the Aramaic that they actually had a suffix, and the suffix was O-O-T-A. And when they added that suffix to a word, that indicated that part of the dissociated mind, or the unconscious dynamics, were controlling perception and behavior. And of course, if we're being run from our unconscious dynamics, we're not conscious of the dynamics that are running us. And there's a lot of trauma and pain in there that if we simply are able to open up and look at those hidden parts, we can begin to change the behaviors that come from them. And as you do that, you come back to a direct experience of the active presence of love. And that direct experience is what Yeshua was talking about when he spoke about the first law, that we needed to have that directly in our experience in order to be able to function out of that state. And if we are ignorant of the power that forgiveness has to remove the unconscious dynamics and take us back to that experience, then we tend to make up all kinds of crazy definitions for love, none of which are anything to do with what love really is, which is our humanness. Our humanness is the active presence of love. And so we're working to restore the awareness of that to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. And this radio show is our effort to support those who are engaging in the work that we're suggesting, in understanding the work and being able to put it to work in their lives. And again, we invite you, if you have a comment or a question, if you're using the tools and there's any kind of support or assistance needed, we want to be able to support you. Of course, we can't support you if we don't know what's on your mind. So if you would just pick up the phone and give us a call, the number is 646-200-4169. That's 646-200-4169. Hit 1. That'll put you in the queue for a question, and Jeanie will bring you on the air. We'd love to hear your questions or your thoughts.
Well, that's always the challenge, isn't it, Michael? It is about...
That's always the challenge.
Yeah, because, as you were talking about the water and the different things that are going on, I can almost hear the response of what some people may have about it, and like, well, that's not my problem, or that doesn't have anything to do with me, or I don't want to hear about that, or, and all of a sudden, as I was having that thought, I noticed that thoughts are what creates feelings. And usually when I hear words and responses back from people like that, my first intuitive feeling is that they're coming from fear, that there's some concern there. And so I invite folks to notice that if anything is raising up to you, and if it isn't raising up to you, even notice that wow, that's no concern of mine. That doesn't have anything to do with me, when it does have everything, as you were talking about, with our neighbor. Everything that goes on, it's a resonance of us, of what's going on in our energy field with that. And I've been talking with people about this language and the language that is being used, and I think it ties in with what Tim was talking about in our purpose. I have to define my purpose. As soon as I define my purpose and start moving towards it, then I get to see things. I get to recognize what it is that's really going on out there and take responsibility for my part in it. And again, responsibility meaning the ability to respond to, other than guilt, fault, blame, or shame. And I recognize that that's a big challenge for everyone, because the culture and the society and the programs out there is to, what was that? What was the ostrich that sticks its head in the ground or something? Is that the ostrich? Actually, I found out that that the reason that the ostrich sticks its head in the ground is so that it can protect its head while it kicks. It's a defensive mood. It's not hiding from it. It really gets there to defend itself. So like with us, when we just kind of stick our head in the ground, what we're really doing is taking a defensive posture that we're starting to argue and to kick and to fight about. Oh, no, that doesn't have anything to do with me. It has everything to do with me. So I invite folks, as Michael said, what's on your mind? What are your questions? What are your concerns? What are your thoughts on what it is that we're talking about? We'd like your support in that, and we offer you our support in doing the same thing. So did I stir anyone up? Anything out there, Jeannie?
Not at the moment.
On Tuesday night in the support group, we watched Bruce Lipton's video where he was talking about the empirical evidence they have for how what is our intelligence, what decides what happens within our body and within our genes, is an energy field that comes from outside the cell and outside the body. And the power of that, when he described how every cell in the body has a receptor that registers my mind energy, as well as registering chemical inputs or the physical threat. And on top of that, the mind energy receptor will always override the cell's physical receptors. So if I'm sitting with a belief that I'm in danger, that there's a threat, that there's a reason for me to be tense or shut down, even if I'm in a perfectly safe environment, my body will start to shut down and go into protect mode. And if it stays there too long, it starts to break down. So there's another reason to choose a different purpose And one of the purposes suggested by your work, Michael, is to try to keep love active and present in my mind in each moment. And if I do that, then I send the signal to my body that it doesn't need to shut down, that it doesn't need to start eating itself from the inside out, and I have a whole different experience both physically and emotionally.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Tim, and it actually adds a reinforcement to the forgiveness process, because once you put those frequencies, those thoughts, into the cell stores them and operates as though they're true. And every time that a thought of threat or fear is activated, even if it was something that happened to us when we were 3 years of age, if a circumstance that's similar to that in the environment, an environmental frequency shows up that resonates that, then the cell acts as if it's back at 3 years of age, playing out of those same dynamics. And the forgiveness process is the way that, from the Aramaic perspective, that you can go into the cell and remove those responses, literally relieving the cell of the stresses of a lifetime of insanity. And so often, we live in family and cultural systems that are filled with fear, hostility, criticism. And of course, every parent that does that says, well, I'm only doing it to help you. I'm only doing it because I love you. Well, but if it's fear, hostility, and criticism, it's not love. And they're the frequencies that literally tend to destroy human life. When we have educational methods that are rooted in the avoidance of failure, then we end up with systems that create failure. And each system that isn't based on the active presence of love, and I don't care whether you're looking at educational, family, church, government, business, corporation, each system that is not based in the actual presence and activity of love literally plays a role in the destruction of the experience of ourselves as love. And especially with the younger child, because every energy pointed at that innocent human life instills a dynamic frequency that's stored physiologically throughout the structure. And the idea and the reason we're offering and centering most of our conversation around the forgiveness tool from the Aramaic is that's how you go back to those places and remove from the cell what never belonged there in the first place. And of course, from the whole emotional tone of one's life, those things can be removed. Unfortunately, when a circumstance comes along that resonates those old frequencies, the tendency is to go into a non-being form of function. That is, I deny ownership for what's going on in my own structure. I just know that I feel threatened, and so what did my power person do when they felt threatened? And unconsciously, I'll look at the frequencies that I absorbed from that power person, and my behavior will be precisely the same, bless you, precisely the same as that of the power person. But what we'll tend to do is we'll as with this gentleman last night, he was doing with his son exactly what he hated his father doing, precisely what he hated his father doing, but he couldn't see that that was what was going on until his wife turned to him and said, well, gee, dear, that's exactly what your dad does, still today. And when his dad does it today, he hates it, but he does it to his son, and in his mind, he can rationalize that, well, this is just, something beneficial and a way to support my son. And, of course, it isn't that. It's coming out of those non-human dynamics of hostility and fear that when they're resonated, if we don't know how to breathe through them, if we don't know how to forgive them, simply run our behavior, our thoughts, our feelings, and our minds. And we fashion out of these non-being dynamics a mask, a self, so to speak, based on those energies that were pointed at us, usually by the power person. And then run by that, the rest of our lives play out, simply repeat those dynamics, which, of course, isn't life at all. It's non-life, pretending to be life. And we're looking to get to the point where we are life, not pretending to be life, but actually living an active life of being aware of themselves as love and recognizing that the only dynamics I need to deal with are the ones that go on inside of me. And the forgiveness tool is the key tool in doing that. So the work is that of returning to being. And, this work of returning to being has been in development since the first fist fight, since the first conflict and violence on the earth. There has been a conversation about how to return to our original human nature. And of course, when our non-human nature looks at that conversation, it has a whole story based in hostility and fear instead of in love, that it pretends is actually about the return to love. And so out of that comes threat and fear and manipulation and, condemnation. I saw a bumper sticker recently that I thought was pretty interesting, that sort of turned that around, and it was a bumper sticker asking a parent the question, have you threatened your child with hell yet today, with eternal damnation? And supposedly that's going to be something that will benefit the children. And I'd offer that such a thing will never benefit anyone. It will simply inspire more fear, that state that Bruce talks about on that video of going into that protect mode, and that we can only survive for so long in protect mode, and all of a sudden we go, oh, some terrible disease has attacked us. We better go find some wonderful pill that will fix us. When the dynamic is our own, we're in charge of it, we can change it. And the work of healing is individual to each of us, and that's what we're here to share with you and to support you in having in your world and passing on to others in your world.
Well, there's two things, Michael. One is, as you talk about in your video, codependence to interdependence, and you describe the power person, you also say, remember, your power person was once a little bundle of love as an infant, and the power person is always also doing only the best they can with whatever tools they have. And so there are some things that our power person does which are hurtful to us, but there are also things that happen that are relatively neutral in their experience, and we interpret them negatively. And when I watched that video with Bruce Lipton, it kept coming to mind one of my favorite quotes from Ben Franklin, which was, I've experienced many horrible difficulties in my life, most of which have never happened.
Yep.
And the forgiveness tool is as useful for forgiving all of those false realities I've created from neutral experiences as it is for forgiving and dismantling the false realities from actual negative experiences that have happened.
Right, and those experiences tend to be generational. That's why the story of the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years offered a solution, and the solution was the old generation had to die off. And that didn't mean everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. The root of the word generation is genera. It means cause. All of the old causes held in the mind from the generations have to be removed. And forgiveness is how to do that. And so that return to the true state of our original selves, which is love, is an awesome process to engage in. And of course, the non-being mind always has a cheap copy of what's real in the spiritual dimension, and the cheap copy is a pretender. We have people who not knowing that their original created state was that of love, go looking for love in all the wrong places, thinking that love has got something to do with being approved of, or doing the right things, or sexual athletics, or whatever the crowd demands. And none of that has anything to do with love. That's the non-being mind's cheap copy of love. Love is an active presence that is awesome in its experience. And if you don't remember the experience, make your way to the closest newborn. Take a few breaths, get quiet, hold that newborn, and just tap into their essence. You will know from direct experience exactly what love is. And if you're lucky, you'll have the remembrance of, yes, this is who I am course, this is who I am, and this is what I can function out of. Which means that most of the dynamics of most people's lives are going to have to be gone through and removed, because the world hasn't taught us to function out of that. They've taught us to function out of something different. So love isn't something we do, it's what we are. When we mix those words up, when we lose the definition and the experience of love, then we buy into the world's definitions, which are usually about controlling and manipulating us, instead of something different.
And Michael, when you mentioned that, I'm reminded that the healing process, how you talk about it, and if you want to spend a few minutes talking about it, why people choose, but they don't really choose, why they shut down, and what happens when people are in a healing crisis. Because it's been my experience that when people are in it, unless that they have this information, unless they have a little understanding about the forgiveness, then to recognize when we're in a healing process, when that energy that comes in is leaving, as you talk about it, it feels the same way going out. Could you talk about that for a few minutes?
Well, basically what we offer in the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop is a description of what healing looks like. And when you recognize that your physiology is not physical, but rather it's an energy system, then it's an energy system designed to embody love. If in our genetics or in our experience something different was offered, something different was pointed at us, the young child who, functioning in being, is zapped with the rage, the fear, the grief of a power person, the energies tend to become locked into their structure. It's absorbed through resonance and becomes locked into the structure, and most of the culture says, well, if you're not feeling good today, we've got a pill that'll help you to shut that feeling down. We can hide it. We can suppress it for you. And we've had several conversations with a physician here in Pahrump who's been talking with his patients about, I can give you a pill for that, but it's not going to fix anything. All it will do is take away your awareness of that. Does it make sense for me to hand you Xanax so that you don't have to deal with what's in your body? Or should I hand you a worksheet with which you can go in and remove that frequency? Now, one of the reasons why doing that is not very popular is because you have to go back through those energies that have been locked in. So symptomatically, healing looks exactly like the disease process. On a physical level, you're going to go back through old physical symptoms exactly the way they were initially. As the energy comes back out, you'll experience those frequencies in the same way. And when that occurs, there's going to be a tendency for there to be low energy, for there to be a drop in the energy level. On a mental level, healing looks like any kind of negative thought you've ever had and confusion. So as those old frequencies start to come back up, you purposely want to dig them up out of the cell. And people say, well, why would I want to dig that out of the cell? Why don't I just leave it there? I wasn't aware of it yesterday, and why would I want to become aware of it today? Well, because that frequency has a quality relative to your cell, and if it's hostility and fear, then your cell's in a state of degradation. Literally, the chemistry in the cell is going to start to dissolve or destroy the cell. You want to get into that cell and pull out what doesn't belong so that the cell is freed of the influence of that frequency. And so it is desirable, but on a mental level, it's going to look like confusion. It's going to look like any kind of negative thought that's ever been locked in anywhere in your whole bloodline. And then on an emotional level, that same healing process as the energy is reversed. On the way in, it felt and was experienced in a certain way. On the way out, it's going to be experienced the same way. And so on an emotional level, it looks like any kind of negative feeling you've ever had in depression as that energy moves out of the structure. And as you begin the journey of healing and you might want to read that section in the book, and you can download the book free from the website, www.whyagain.com. Read through the book, but in particular pay attention to the section on the healing process, on the symptoms of healing. And what we'll point out there is that as you move that energy out of the structure, it's experienced in exactly the same way as it was experienced on the way into the structure. And what you want to do is allow yourself to do that, but do it from a space of connectedness and love. Holding the space for yourself, breathing, staying in a state of willingness as those energies move, and being able to let go of the mind's hallucinations that what you're feeling and what's going on inside of you is about somebody else. And as you remove those frequencies, everything starts to change. You're liberated. You're freed. You're freed from your own insanity. And the only insanity you can ever feel, and our definition of insanity in this work is a human so-called being without the active presence of life, without the active presence of love. And so to be restored to that active presence of love becomes key. Call-in number, if you've got a question or a comment, a thought, is 646-200-4169. We'd love to hear your questions, your thoughts. 954, you're on the air.
Hi, Michael. This is Salvador again.
Well, hello, Salvador. Delight to hear from you. How do you be?
Very well. Thank you. I'm here and get a chance to log into the show and enjoying very much. And just my comment is I've been I've been a little struggling. It's been challenging to keep up the 5 sheets days a day because every sheet turns to be like 2 pages. You know, I grab in the back of the page, and I spend, I don't know, from at least 30 minutes to 45, and sometimes an hour. So I get to go very deep into, and it brings me new spaces that I'm enjoying to discover and to reconnect of my own.
It is awesome. It's awesome how much we can hide from ourselves, isn't it, Salvador?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I'm more and more. I'm with the same intensity, appreciating this simple tool that has been giving me so much.
Yeah, I got an email from a woman last week who was saying that the worksheet had become her absolute best friend. And what she really liked about the worksheet was that she could tell it anything. You know,
right.
She didn't have to censor her thoughts. She didn't have to wonder if people were going to judge her, if this was wrong or bad. She was just able to put it right down there. And then, as it reflected back to her, it gave her the opportunity to work through it. And to me, the awesome and amazing part of it is how, when you use that tool, it acquaints you with dynamics that you didn't even know were going on inside of you. And in Aramaic, that's where they had that word uta, or that suffix uta, that said that those dynamics were the things that were controlling perception and behavior. And oftentimes we think about, gee, well, why would I do that? Why did I do that? And as you become acquainted with those uta brain cells, those unconscious brain cells, wow, it leads to a whole new level of aliveness in life. Mm-hmm. So are there any questions in particular, Salvador, or anything to share in particular from the worksheet? Any way we can support you with your worksheets at this point?
No, really, no. I just acknowledge that, and what you and I will point what you just said from this girl's comment. In fact, I sometimes I try to journal, and I get in my notebook, and I don't know what to write, and here is like a great space to download exactly what's being waiting there to be written, and without any further how do you say restriction. So it comes very freely, and so I'm very excited and thankful.
Awesome. Glad to be on the team. I look forward to the next time we get to get face to face and get some more of your awesome body work done.
Thanks so much, and I get to also acknowledge you for the beautiful healing work you did with me, also hands-on. It still is working on me. It's been very transformational. So thank you again. And I know I'm going to write to David. I haven't done yet. The email I'm going to send it, and I am also on hold to share with my kids. That's another project. I think that's going to happen the weekend. That's time where we can be more freely and going deep. So,
Salvador, thank you. Thank you for your level of willingness. When I first heard your voice, my thought was, wow, you're experiencing just what Michael was talking about, that from the tone of your voice, it sounds like you've been in process of doing some things, that there's some energy, and as you said, you can start on a worksheet, and you could spend 45 minutes on one worksheet. And I invite you to know that, as you're moving through that, this stuff is moving out at an unconscious level, that you really are, you're removing a lot of things. And I look forward to getting your email and invite you to, again, I'll give you the numbers so that you can be on the call on Sunday night, and ask for that support out there. It's unnecessary to do it on your own, especially all the time. It's because the mind sometimes will take us so deep down in it that on our own, we can't do it. I was doing a workshop here, a YAGN workshop here at Heartland a couple of years ago for the participants for the people that are on our work support program here. And we went down to the Heart Center, and there was about 6 of us or something like that, and I kind of checked in with them to see what it is that they wanted to do. And I was telling them I was having such a challenge of what to do, how to move through this, that they said, why don't we breathe you? And do you know that the participants there had me get in a breathing posture, and they breathed me, and all of a sudden, I don't know what it was that was removed, yet it was removed. It was gone. And all they did was they held the space for me while I processed through my stuff.
Right.
You have that support there. And that's the purpose of this radio station. That's the purpose of us talking about this each day, for Dr. Tim having the Mind Support Group up there, where he gets to take himself into that presence, and with that accumulated energy, that synergy of the energies, it allows things to be healed at an unconscious level with it. So congratulations. Wonderful to hear your voice on there. Thank you for the
Thank you, David. Thank you. And I write you to receive the support for the Sunday call, and yes, I agree with you. Just the very fact to know that there is other people doing the same work around, it's already a great support, and feeling that we are expanding to make a difference in the consciousness.
Yeah.
So I look to connect with you.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks to you.
Fabulous. Glad to hear from you.
So the number is 646-200-4169. Are there any other callers? Anyone else out there that has a question or comment? Jeannie?
No other comments or questions at this point. So we'll move forward with speaking about this thing called human nature, which is to be love, and to inspire that state in everyone we touch. I know that is Tim still with us on the line? Oh, great. Tim maybe could share a little bit more from the support groups and his experience of holding that space of love and people being able to discover that in themselves. It's such an awesome discovery when someone who lives a life of pain and trauma and turmoil and fear, of course, with 1,000 good reasons, all of those skills. One of the things we know about the non-being mind is that once it develops a skill, it will have 1,000 hallucinated reasons why that skill is necessary to life. And that waking up to, I could have just been in a state of love instead. It's so awesome to watch that happen in a workshop setting, isn't it, Tim?
Yes, it's unbelievable. It's not something you could ever predict, and that's one of the best parts of being in the group is just hearing the testimonials that come up. Sometimes we'll have a series of weeks where that's all people want to do is share how they've handled a specific trauma or dealing with family or the kind of thing that used to set them into a rage, and they found that in the past week they handled the whole situation as though they were a different person. And we try to offer that in a way they are. They're getting rid of the garbage, the bushel baskets that cover up their essence as love, and they're able to live from that space and extend that love. And it's mind-boggling to witness that in the support group.
Yeah, and when we see someone able to do that, it opens a space in us. When we see someone who opens that, and it's not, one of the things the non-being mind will do is just, well, tell me what I need to do in order to do that. And as though a list of loving behaviors would produce the result called love. And that's kind of the old story of the cart before the horse. You can have the largest list of loving behaviors in the world, and you can do all of those behaviors. That doesn't mean that your human life is active and present, that love is present. And the thing that I was thinking about when I mentioned that to Tim and that he is feeding back to is to watch someone who catches in the middle of their muddle, in the middle of their drama and trauma, catches the direct experience of their own humanness and the healing power of the activity of that love in one's own physiology is just awesome to behold and such a privilege to be a part of. And one of the other thoughts that comes to mind, Tim, as you were speaking, Dr. Andrakis, the fellow who's sponsoring us here in Las Vegas, has been introducing us to several physicians. And it's not something I'd particularly thought of before, but he's made the point several times to these folks that all he has to do is one thing with patients now in terms of do they want to do their healing work. One tool, and that's it. One solution. And this one physician we were with last night said, well, but how is that possible? That doesn't make sense. We've got to have all these different... 90 seconds? Yes, Stephen kept coming back with, no, it just takes that one thing, and that is the forgiveness. And the example I came up with, imagine you've got a group of 1,000 people, each watching a different television show. One of them's watching a murder mystery. One of them's watching some violence happen. One of them's watching a fight, and on and on and on. We can have 1,000 different traumas and dramas going on, but there's one solution that changes all of that, and that is when you change the channel. And literally, it's about attuning to a different frequency, bringing in the actual experience of our humanness, and bringing that experience of our humanness in changes the channel. I don't care what your drama and trauma is. It doesn't matter. And it's so exciting to watch people get that, isn't it, Tim? David?
Yes, and to set a trap for God.
Yes. Yeah, the real definition of prayer, to be the space in which the love of God shows up in the world. It's such an awesome privilege. So we're down to about 20 seconds, which means that it's time to invite you to go to the website, look up our schedule in Las Vegas if you want to come and play, www.whyagain.com. And this is in preparation for having the best year yet of your eternal life. You are cared for, you are loved, and blessings.